1963. I typed that up after 6 or 7 years of learning the hard way, making a great number of mistakes. Fortunately, my teams were small. My first team was just 2, then 3, then 5. That was a year later. Some of you now get thrown into leading teams of 12 or more people. How much more you need these principles than I needed them back then. Of course, you don't learn these things just by reading a manual, but it certainly is a major factor. When you go into a position of leadership in a secular company or an army, they throw you a manual sometimes 5 times that thick, and you have to learn that, and you have to give it back verbatim. And it is amazing to see the way the world pursues what they have to do. Very, very few men that have ever walked on this earth have been willing to give to Jesus what men in the world would give for their businesses and for the sake of money. Very, very few. Of course, you know that we have Satan resisting us. We know that drawing upon pure motivation certainly lowers the production factor in most cases. Also, I guess another factor is that not many wise are called. God tends to gather his disciples from all kinds of characters, a large percentage of whom are rather weak, including myself. So I'd like to dig right into the manual. I'm going to be suggesting parts of this manual that are likely to come up on the exam because they're parts I feel you should know. Some of this manual is not very relevant any longer and is actually being left out of the Revised Edition. 7 or 8 chapters of which you have already received in duplicated form. There are no more left. And another 15 chapters are being typed right now. They will go out. Then there'll be feedback on this manual for the next few months before the final edition is done in the fall. Appreciate your prayers for that project. If we can take our leaders' manuals now, we'll quickly go through them, pointing out some of the key things that we need to know. In the introduction, we strongly emphasize this important matter of leadership and how very seldom followers go much further than their leaders take them. There's a desperate, desperate need for leadership training. My eyes have been so open to this, especially since engaging in these pastors' conferences on the ship. It is unbelievable how little training some of these men have had, who are pastoring churches, who are supposedly Christian leaders. And I want to tell you, sometimes I get a bit depressed with the position of OM leadership. But what I've seen in some churches and in some other places, it's just no words to describe it. People who haven't got a clue of even the basic remnants of leadership and handling people. They've never had a single course in leadership. They've never even learned the Bible verses on the subject of leadership, which carry a lot of material. The book of Proverbs should be studied extensively by anyone interested in Christian leadership or in a position of leadership. So there's a great need for leadership training. There's a great need for leaders in every area. I think of attempts like the World Congress on Evangelism. Do you know what it's going to cost to run that Congress? A couple of million. They got to fly people by chartered aircraft all the way to Lausanne from Japan, from South Africa, from South America, costing millions. And all they can get is a very tiny percentage of the leaders, and many of those are the ones who have already had more than anybody else. They are the cream. What about the hundreds of thousands of pastors, evangelists, church secretaries who have never had any leadership training? We should thank God in OM that we have this, that we have manuals. We're not in the dark on how to lead a team, how to handle doctrinal controversies. Many of the churches, I found out right here in the East, are split to pieces over doctrinal controversies. They don't know what to do. In this very room today, about 35% of the men who came to this pastor's conference stood to their feet to rededicate their lives to Jesus Christ. I have over 40 feedback sheets from these men, prayer requests. Many of them are desperate. They don't know what to do. No one's ever taught them very much, and they're faced with all kinds of problems. Whole churches where everybody's unsaved. What are you going to do with that kind of church? All kinds of confusion. So this is serious. And we emphasize this in our introduction. I may ask you a question from the introduction concerning leadership, such as the twofold aspects of leadership. What are they? Practical and the spiritual. We must not separate them. We must keep them together. We need training in both areas. I feel, I speak very honestly, that I am still in leadership training. I was reading a book this very evening on leadership, because I know I have so much more to learn. And I learned something. Actually, I learned something from a quotation of Marcus Aurelius, who, I don't think he was a Christian. Or was he a Christian? No. An amazing little bit of information I picked up from this man tonight on the subject of relaxation. And he gives this quotation, or in his little book on meditations called Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, of how far better than going off on a holiday, though he's not against that, is if we learn to create an area of retreat in the holiday in our own mind. And we learn daily to withdraw into that retreat center for emotional refueling. Tremendous thought. Anyway, we have the spiritual, we have the practical. We never cease to learn in both these areas. The greatest challenge of our life is that we're always learning how to be a better leader. I'm always reading at least one book on rearing children. I feel myself so inadequate in this area. It's been harder for me to lead my 3 children than I had to be to lead the rest of the 900 people in Operation Mobilization. The other people in OM, if I want to, I can tell them to get out. You know, I can't do that with my 3 kids. They're permanent on my team. I made many mistakes. Mistakes I would never make with my team on OM. I've made with my own children. And some of us learn this too late. Chapter 1 is called The Leadership of Leaders. And here, perhaps the key line is the 3rd line, last word. It is a position which requires setting the example for the entire group. The leader's life is more important than anything else. That doesn't mean you're going to be the best in everything. Tomorrow morning, then, you're going to have your 3-mile race. Some of you have to go away tomorrow night because you're so crazy talented, you Filipinos, and they need you in the rally. So the race must be moved to tomorrow. Personally, I have no great intention of winning that race. I don't think I have to in order to be the leader. I don't think Tony has to in order to be the leader. We know he's not going to win it. It'll be a miracle if he finishes it. But we're all going to be in it. So it's not that the leader is the number one man in everything. In fact, the wise leader learns how to use the men who are talented in different areas. On the IT, we have some with musical talent. There's no sense Tony and myself pretending in any way to set the pace in this area. We can neither yodel nor whistle. But we can learn to make use of you. And so the leader is not the man who's perfect in everything. But basically, he is setting an example in spiritual life. In fact, one of the ways he sets the example, he's a good loser. I knew one so-called leader playing ping pong in Belgium when he lost the game, threw his paddle across the room, stamped his feet, swore, and walked out. Spiritual leadership. And some people can't stand to lose. But the areas where the leader is setting the pace is in brokenness, humility, godliness, kindness, self-control, much more than being the best track passer, the best bookseller, the best runner, or whatever else it may be. So don't mix up this concept of being the pace setter. Leaders who do that end up oftentimes with an ulcer. By the way, I was reading a book that the best way to get an ulcer is to be a mountain climber over molehills. I thought that was very good. Some of us do in our Christian lives make mountains out of molehills. And if you attack the molehills of the IT program as if they're mountains, you may indeed get an ulcer. Better to fail the program and keep a clear stomach. Another thing I'd like you to remember from this chapter are the last words on the bottom of this page. One cannot be truly appreciative without an awareness of what is going on, without a gracious and humble spirit in saying thank you, and without a genuine attitude of compassion toward his co-laborers. We need real love and compassion toward our co-laborers. How very important that is. This exam, 50% of it, you'll get the correct answer through common sense. 75% of this manual is common sense. Common sense. You know, common sense is usually the number one sense missing with many, many people. So you may want to read the manual, even though you feel your high score on common sense. Chapter 2, we've changed the title on in the New Revised Manual, and it's called Follow-Up on Delegation. Remember Moses' father-in-law? Moses was really killing himself. He was headed for an early grave. Trying to answer everybody's questions, counsel everybody, judge all the problems. Someday I think Miley's getting in that situation. Maybe I'll have to get his father-in-law. Trouble is he doesn't have one. Anyway, father-in-law Moses came and said, look, you can't do this. You've got to divide up in thousands and hundreds and tens. From now on, Moses, you're only going to handle the really hard, difficult problems. Delegation. That's what Moses' father-in-law was teaching to Moses. And it's necessary. But that delegation needs to have follow-up. Now, we speak about that. We speak about the importance of repetition. We speak about the importance of writing things down. I may ask you a question. Like, what are 3 things we must always remember when we delegate something? The answer is easy, isn't it? You'll find it in that chapter. One of them is follow up. Another one is write it down. The third one, you can take your choice of several. A lot of mistakes are made in ON because things are delegated and not followed up. I could give you a list in any port we've been in. Any port we've been in. And mistakes cost. This little mistake down in Madras with these goods that were unloaded. Somebody gave an order to unload some goods. I don't know about it. I wasn't there. I wish I'd received a memo on it. I still feel partially to blame. But that little mistake, because it wasn't followed up on, may cost this little movement more money than all of us can ever save by forsaking Coca-Cola and ice cream over a period of 1 year. Believe me, I find it harder to forsake those things every year I don't forsake them all the time, only part of the time. But believe me, this thing may cost us 30,000 rupees. This mistake. Mistakes cost. That's why we want to learn to be diligent. That's why a section like this, though I know you may have preferred to do something else, is valuable even if you sharpen up on only a few areas. Even if you increase your efficiency only 3 points, that just may be enough to save us from a major mistake. You know, we've announced many times on this ship not to sit on the toilet Indian style. But we haven't announced it much lately. And we don't have a memo with that exhortation in it. In fact, even our little manual here on the ship we used to give out is out of print. And so, of course, we've almost had a brother, he could have been killed this week with that kind of crisis on our toilets, which are not built for those things. Of course, now we're going to put in some Indian toilets, or adapt our toilets to Indian style. Little things, huh? If you could have been there for 2.5 hours and watched the doctor put the stitches in, you know, it would have become a very big thing in your mind. In fact, just hearing about it, I almost passed out. I'm very weak on these areas. I don't want to ever go near a hospital. Very weak in this area. Emotional. So little things count, don't they? Little things count. Tomorrow when you run that race, especially when you cut through the sea, if you're not careful, we're liable to have some cut feet. Of course, the doctor's not far, and we hope we can get the stitches in time. And if you learn anything in life, you've got to risk being hurt. If you never risk being hurt, you'll never learn anything. I remember when the coach in my school got up. He's a believer now. I just got a letter from him. And he said to the students, it doesn't hurt to get hurt. It doesn't hurt to get hurt. So if somebody gets hurt tomorrow in the 3-mile race, of course, we don't want to lose anybody. Maybe we'll bring some rope with us in case anybody gets carried away to sea. But it doesn't hurt to get hurt. And if we never risk anything, listen, if we never risk anything, we'll never make anybody a leader. Don't think I don't worry about the risks of this work. All those trucks, this ship, the summer crusade, the chartered flight, so many risks. Don't think I don't lose some sleep. But I know enough that in history, no real men are ever made without risks. And that at times will include some people being killed. No, and we've had very little of that. But if we're going to continue making men, if we're going to continue in a real world where people are killed every minute of every day, we too may suffer. And it may be sometimes because of our own mistakes. That's the last thing I want in life. But I'm not going to crawl away like a coward from life because I'm afraid somebody's going to be hurt. All of history shouts that that is not the way. In fact, as we crawl away and refuse to face life, we may discover even a greater accident and even more people being hurt. We need to understand that. We need to see and be willing to be leaders, to learn the secret of delegation, even delegating different things, difficult things, and follow up. Then we have a chapter of redeeming the time. The main reason that I have the privilege right now, if I wanted, of failing everybody on IT is because you didn't learn quick enough what it was to redeem the time. Most of you are now twice as good as you were 4 months ago, but it's too late. You've already lost the race. Of course, we have different ways of deciding whether people pass or fail, and we're working on a graph right now to see where we stand. We mark on a curve. We want to pass at least somebody. Will look good to the Board of Trustees. But anyway, the main thing in IT is to finish. So I don't want anybody pooping out this week, or I will make a public spectacle of you. Maybe make you sit on the mast top for 24 hours with permission of the captain for all to go out and look at you. So just keep running. You don't care if you get all the gold. Just keep running. Redeeming the time. I hope you will go out of this program at least knowing something about redeeming the time. It is a sick joke that some of you have not got your 3,000 pages. It is extremely sad that you could not memorize 2 verses a week. No excuse for any of these things. Some of the things are excuses for. Definitely the videotape. What can I do? That one you can throw on me. I pray you'll read this chapter in Redeeming the Time. You'll recommit your heart and determine to redeem the time even more out of IT than in it. There are many ways to redeem the time. When you're out on the team, there are some of the areas, and I may ask you for these on the exam. Anything in bold print in this book, 50% chance you're going to get it in the exam. What are the areas? Eating, packing, traveling, communicating. 4 areas. I'm lenient. You put one area in that's not there, we may count it. So make sure you know that. Then we go into the chapter on neatness, tidiness, and orderliness. My few trips to the men's dorm was enough to totally depress me on this score. I hope you'll do better in the future. I know it's hard in OM when at times you're asked to evacuate the dorm, made into a girls' dorm, changed back into a men's dorm. Fortunately, we haven't had a scandal centered around the dormitory. But we're still going on. Neatness is important. It is important. That's why I asked Mr. Yole to leave the dining hall and get properly dressed. We don't come in this dining hall dressed improperly. This was brought up at the planning meeting, and it's the captain and the officers who came down on we in the ministry. Even though some of their men are not exactly winning first prize for dressing the best. But I believe the ship's dining hall should be treated properly, and in the evening time we should dress properly. And you know that I'm an enemy of short, except for certain situations. Anyway, that's minor, really, compared to some of the other things. I have sat next to people on this ship and had wished there was another seat available in the dining hall. Of course, this is something we generally improve on when we get married. My wife has been a great help to me, so I don't want to be too stiff with some of you. Then we talk about weekly reports and communication. I may ask you a question like 100 reasons why we have weekly reports. 5 will do. But reports are important in communication. The weekly reports are one of the unique and important phases of OM. You see, it's important to sense that we are responsible to someone. Communication is important. Feedback is important. There's one young lady in here who's not come to see me much, one of the girls are still to me, but has sent me a few notes encouraging me, certain messages I've given. That has meant a lot to me. Because one thing I never know, and that's what the world, the women, are thinking. Never even know what my wife is thinking, much less all the rest of them. So feedback is important. And these weekly reports are a form of communication. And they're important. So glance through that chapter. Then we talk about mistakes. And almost surely I'm going to ask you, what do you do when you make a mistake? Of course, you apologize. You don't have to repent of a mistake unless sin has been involved. Now, a lot of my mistakes, sin is involved. I'm upset. I'm not resting in the Lord. I'm irritable, so I make a mistake. What was the root cause? Sin. Sin. Irritability. Lack of self-control. Pride. I apologize for the mistake and I repent of the sin. They often come together. Many times, because of pride, we say, oh, brother, I'm sorry I did that. But we're unwilling to confess the root cause. The reason I did that, brother, is that I was upset. That's hard to confess, isn't it? We repress that. We bury that. So we're quicker to say, oh, boy, sorry about that mistake. Now, many of us aren't even willing to admit our mistake. Cover up, to give excuses. I want to tell you, I've heard more phony alibis in 19 years than I could use to fill a volume of encyclopedia. How to be honest is very important. And I think this comes from basic false doctrine. False doctrine is that subtly we believe that the real dedicated Christian is a man who doesn't make any mistakes. That's a false doctrine. I make mistakes almost every day. I have a lot of decisions. You don't have many decisions. You don't have many opportunities to make mistakes. Sometimes I have to make 100 decisions in one day. I churn out 40 letters telling people to do all kinds of things, and sometimes I just don't give them the right advice. So it's not so easy. And we have to learn. Decision-making, get this, I'm not sure where we'll get to it. Decision-making is a vital part of leadership. Better to make some wrong decisions than never learn to make a decision. You've got to learn to make decisions. You cannot be trapped by procrastination. Very important. All right, let's go on. Public speaking, very important area. One of the main things I tell you to do in this chapter is what? Read other books on public speaking. Because in 2 pages, I can't give you a course on public speaking. I was just reading today about some of the great men, the great public speakers, including Billy Graham. Many of them learned shadow boxing. You know what shadow boxing is? The guy who knocked out Jack Dempsey took all the films he could get of Jack Dempsey and went through them. He learned Jack Dempsey's every move. He watched him day and night, and he shadow boxed Jack Dempsey thousands of times. And when he finally got into the ring, he knocked Jack Dempsey for such a loop he never forgot it. Boxers learn shadow boxing. Also, men who train boxers know that you train a man in a relaxed situation. They don't let all the photographers and the newspaper men come in and take pictures of these guys when they're training. There's a psychological factor, I was reading about this some time ago, that tells us that the best way to train a man is in a relaxed situation. And if you do things in a relaxed situation, when the crisis comes, you'll be able to do it. That's why men who learn to shoot, I never was very well, before I was saved, used to work with a rifle a little bit, but I was never any good. And the men who learn to shoot well, they shoot dozens of hours without any bullets. And you'll discover a man can shoot without bullets, his aim will be perfectly straight. And my hand isn't moving much. You put a gun in this man's hand, tell him to shoot the bullseye, and his hand will begin to shake. And there are many, many ways this can be proven. This is why you have lifeboat drills. If we go through this lifeboat drill in a relaxed way without any emergency, we keep doing that, the day will come with an emergency and we'll go through it. The man who's never faced this, most likely, if he heads straight first time into an emergency, he'll panic. He won't make it. He won't make it. I could talk about that for a long time. That's why training is very important. Speaking in front of a mirror, shadow boxing, can help train you. Billy Graham was a door-to-door salesman. Sold brushes. Billy Graham, this is my timer. Billy Graham preached in the Florida swamp to the trees, hour after hour after hour. We haven't even got 2% decent preachers in the whole of OM. We don't. And it's because most of us would never be willing to go through what men like Billy Graham went through. We have men who even presume they already know enough. They don't read any more books on the subject. They're too proud to study homiletics. They're too proud to let anybody correct them. A good preacher will give somebody a correction sheet before he goes. I used to do this all the time, especially when I first went to preach in Spanish. I gave somebody a sheet of paper. I said, you write all my errors down here and give this to me after the meeting. Terrific for the prize. But our goals are too low. We're satisfied being mediocre. This is the curse of OM. Too many people satisfied being mediocre. We're a mediocre movement. And many of the people never become great until they get out of OM. Some of you, the sooner you get out of the movement, the better you'll be. Get in something tougher. Get in a secular place where they read. Some of you, the sooner you get out of the movement, the better you'll be. Get in something tougher. Get in a secular place where they really kick your, I won't say it, hard. And you may discover they make you produce. Some of you think I'm so hard on OM. Once in a while I raise my voice and say, why are you late? Most of you are always late. Everything I've ever invited you to, you come in late. Get you in a secular job where we deduct $20 from your salary for every 5 minutes you're late. Woo! Boy, you guys will move. But not in OM. OM, we just sort of dribble around. The only thing we're on time to is the meals. You get there early because you want to get a seat in the dining hall. You don't want to get the boat deck because they don't give you tea there. That's what I found out 2 days ago. I reversed that. Now, of course, we've run out of sugar. Some of you will never be made until you get into a tough secular job. You don't have to have that. A deep, 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 deep love for Jesus will do the same thing. May God give it to us. May God give it to us. So we have public speaking. Let's get down to business. I remember one OM leader, and he was hopeless. You know, I shouldn't say that. He may hear this tape. But he wasn't doing very well. He's had a lot of problems. The biggest problem is always negative, everything negative. Actually, the more I think of it, he wasn't that bad compared to some of the others. But then he went to a Dale Carnegie course on leadership. Boy, did he change. He's now back leading one of OM's fields. And it looks like he may never come back at all. That's another problem, health problem, regarding his wife. But oh my, these people in the secular world, we can learn something from them. Now, I don't believe we should copy them. We use that as a mirror. And then we say, Lord Jesus, produce something better in me with true motivation, with Christ-likeness. I'm not interested in all the world conniving and sneaking and everything else. But I am interested in using this as a mirror. One of you just came to me the other day. I don't know who it is. I don't think you're here. And I told him, why don't you read this book, South Face of Annapurna? Story of these men with Chris Bonington who climbed up the south face of Annapurna, more difficult than Mount Everest. And they made it. One of them was killed. They're heroes today. They're also rich because they make money on the royalties of that book. These Chris Bonington. And I want to say we can learn something from these men. The next thing we talk about is study programs. People are always complaining, OM is not organized in the study program. It's like a broken record. If we have to take each one of you and sit you in a row with a little whip or a little switch. I don't know if you go to the films. I guess you're not supposed to go to the films in India. I don't believe in the films in India. But if you get out of India and you go back to England, go see Mr. Chip, good English schoolmaster. Very good film. More sanctified than the Christian films. If I can get a copy, I'll bring it on the ship. These Christian films, many of them are grotesque. But Dr. Chips is very clean. He was an English schoolmaster in an English boarding school. I wonder if we need a Mr. Chips, who will sit there in front of all the students. Really let loose. Another good film, of course, is Winston Churchill. Boy, he really got bruised in boarding school. But we don't have that in OM. We're doing too many things at once. And we're not a boarding school setup. You're not 16. Some of you are now over 20. It's about time you put your own pants on. And learn discipline. And learn to sit down and study. Whether anybody's watching you or not. And that's the secret of the study program. And I hope you won't give up after you leave OM. A lot of this in this manual dropped from the new manual because we found some of it in practice. And, of course, some fields like France, much, much better than other fields. And now in OM India, we have a new field, or a new method, in the study program. And I think it's going to work. This is where you need imagination. You've already heard a tape on that. Initiative. And I want some of these words to come out in this exam. Imagination, initiative, improvision. I may ask you in the exam, what do? Half your team members don't show up. Your truck is broken down. Your tracks are gone. You haven't got any food and you're out of money. What do you do? And I want to give answers. And I don't want nonsense answers. I take out my walkie-talkie and talk to Central Headquarters and ask George Verwer to send me a new tank. I want answers. Anyway, go on to the prayer meeting chapter. Prayer meeting. How do you maintain life in a prayer meeting? You'll almost surely be asked that. How do you maintain life? Say, if some of these OM prayer meetings, boy, I'm so glad I don't have to go to them. I only hear about them from the people who get fed up with OM at the end of the year, transfer to a more sensible movement. But really, some of the prayer meetings are dead. And we need to pray as leaders before we go into a prayer meeting. Oh, God, help me be sensitive to what you want to do in this meeting. That may be a lie. Now, of course, if everybody's away from the Lord and they're all dead and everything else, you know, the best thing to do? Cancel the meeting. Say, look, why don't everybody go to their room? And if you're not right with God, get right with God. And if there's anybody on the scene who after 2 hours is right with God, would you come back and pray with me? Boy, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? You might get somebody back there. If not, boy, you better hand in your badge as a team leader. Or at least call in the OM Bible teacher and give Jonathan a phone call and do something. Financial and business policy that's just being typed up, so you don't have the revised section. It's completely revised. So I won't expect too much from that chapter, except for the basic point. Give the glory to God, forsake all, live by faith, keep the overhead to a minimum, use common sense. Okay? Sale of donated possessions. I don't know whether that's not happening anymore. I just don't hear about it. I know it is happening in some places. But you know, in Acts chapter 2, when the Holy Spirit really moved, boy, I tell you, a lot of stuff came loose. We go into Singapore, it shouldn't be just a big list of all the things we want. It should be a big list of all the things we want to sell. Or doesn't that happen anymore? Language study. Most of you are failing on your Hindi phrases. Why? Because the mind is harder to discipline than the body. Right? Running in the morning, especially when you've got to be there, or you're liable to have to face Tony or I about it, is a lot easier than memorizing Hindi phrases or any other language. I opened it to any language. So most of us aren't doing well on that point. And I'm not happy about it. Language study. Social relationships. The New Revised chapter is in here. Now that's one thing I'm very happy for about our IT net. They're all good, royal bachelors, holding fast to the faith, waiting for the day they graduate, and the 1 year, the first year of OM is up. Probably be girls running around the decks trying to get away from them. Well, I hope that won't happen, because Miley has enough problems. But please read the social relationship section. Try to understand what a privilege it is to have such freedom for a season. The printed page. Somebody fall over. The printed page. Or, again, at this stage, mainly be responsible for the main points. Things I feel are wrong. I've been harping this thing for 15 years, and I got some very good opportunities once in a while among evangelical leaders to speak about these things, and to some degree there's been an upswing, and we praise God for that. Overemphasis on production. These are mistakes we made in the literature world, the evangelical world. Overemphasis on production, that's not true in Orissa. Overemphasis on certain countries. Overemphasis on the mechanics of the work. And, of course, the biggest bottleneck, what is it? Distribution, boy. If you don't get that answer right, I tell you, you're able to find me jumping off the stern. Then salesmanship. Some people don't like the word salesmanship, so I may change it. Training people to distribute and sell literature. But this is an area where we also need a lot more training. There are a lot of books available on this subject. There's a lot we can learn from the world, and there's a lot we have to reject of the world method. But there's one thing between being a mechanical robot standing in the streets with gospel packets, X-packet charana, X-packet charana, X-packet charana, X-packet charana, X-packet charana. That is not salesmanship. Anybody can do that. I could get a parrot to do it. Just put the gospel packets on top of the stage and let him go at it. Not the parrot my son has. He doesn't do anything. Except eat in the reverse. But believe me, there's a lot of scope in Operation Mobilization for learning how to communicate, to sell that living Bible, and to get this literature out. We've got the greatest product in the world. And I hope that in the next 2 weeks you can get more time on the doors. That is harder than standing on the street like a robot, because you don't know who's going to come to the door. And they're always afraid. You've got to break down the prejudice and break down the barriers. And I find door-to-door work very hard, and I've done a lot of hours of it. I've been avoiding it lately. Looking forward to get back into it. So get that door-to-door training. Shop-to-shop training. Then I talk about general missionary principles. I said completely rewritten that chapter. You'll get it in a few weeks. But you can still read that. It'll be helpful. The laws of men is being completely revised. So some of us really come apart when we have to face the police. And I'm convinced one of the greatest needs in my life still is learning to be completely cool under extreme pressure. Boy, I want to learn that. I've been reading up on that. And there are many practical methods. One is to count under pressure. Somebody's facing you, they're asking you something. Count to 10 under your breath before you answer. Learn to create tranquility in yourself. The phone rings. Count to 10. While you're thinking of that, assure yourself there's no reason to worry about the ringing of a phone. No reason at all. It's ridiculous. You can answer that man. You can always hang up on him. We produce psychological reactions. I have now a reaction to the knocking on my door, especially if I'm laying down. And I notice the knocking on the door creates emotional tension. I jump out of bed if I'm not sound asleep. This comes from this 6:30 and 6 o'clock, 5:30 knock on the door. This morning I woke up more than 8 times before someone finally knocked on the door. And I can't figure that out because I usually sleep quite well. I discovered that my son has just moved in with me, and he brought his parrot. This parrot sits on a bar, and the bar moves, hits the wooden cage that they made for this parrot, which was purchased without permission by Greg Livingston, contrary to the rules of my family. Anyway, the bar moves, bangs against the wood, and sounds just like the door. That incredible parrot is liable to cause me major upset. So I'm moving him into the toilet tonight. Not into the actual toilet, into the room. I would like to drown him, actually. Now, isn't that ridiculous? Little things can get on our nerves. And we have to learn to create within us, as leaders, tranquility, rest. This takes a long time, but it's basic. Harry Truman, he wasn't much of a president, but it was stated of Harry Truman that he took the pressure of the presidency better than any other president to his death. Harry Truman said this. He said, I have created a mental and emotional foxhole. You know that in a war, the troops come back from the fight, get into the foxhole. That's the little hole they dig in the ground, and there's at least a slight relaxation. They generally can't be killed in there. So easy. And Truman created a mental foxhole. So he retreated into that in his own mind through various mechanisms. Last night I was listening to Edith Schaefer lecture on how to maintain balance. Fantastic woman. She's going into some material that she has in her book, Hidden Art. And for everything in that book that doesn't cost money. And there's a lot of things she recommends don't cost money. Amazing. And this is important as a leader. Anyway, a lot of people really crack up when they face the police. They face customs officials. What is a customs official going to do to you? He's going to shoot you. What is a policeman going to do? He's there basically for your protection. We should be more relaxed with these people than with anybody else. We have nothing to fear. We're not outlaws. And we have nothing to hide in India. They have a fire in Delhi and everything we do. And if people were more relaxed in this area, we'd have one half the problem. One half the problem. Then there's the principle of producing faith. Not many OMers today, even leaders, for the lack of study of this manual, could tell you what producing faith is. You read and see what it is. Then go on. You're running out of time. Principle of forsaking all, that's pretty basic. There's about 20 scriptures. Don't be surprised if I ask you for a few scriptures of why we believe in forsaking all. You at least know Luke 14:33. Then there's the principle of fasting. I'm producing a new study sheet on this, or reproducing it by Dale Rotan. I was happy to see that most of you have got your 3 days of prayer and fasting in. That was encouraging. Then is informing us of the work, sharing the vision. I've combined those two in the new manual, which you'll be getting soon. Just basic common sense, which we often lack. And if you get a chance, do reread the histories of the work. Very, very helpful. I really should give IT people an exam on the history of the work. But we've already got too many exams. Prayer letters. I'm amazed to meet some people in OM who are not even convinced about sending out prayer letters. Now, I know the arguments against prayer letters, impersonal. People get too many already and all the rest. But it's better than nothing. And your prayer partners want to know what you are doing. And maybe one of the reasons you've been having trouble in these days is your prayer partners don't know what in the world you are doing, where in the world you are, and so their prayer is stopping and you're feeling it. I have thousands of people praying for me. By the way, in this 5-day blitz through Andhra Pradesh with 2 Volkswagens, and by the way, one of the little IT things of this trip is we're taking no money. 2 gas-guzzling Volkswagens that take 100 rupees to fill a tank, we are not taking any money. So those 5 or 6 of you who are joining me, this is going to be a final trip for some of you to Bombay in 5 days. It's 800 miles. We've got probably 7 or 8 major meetings and a lot of other things all to do at the same time. So I hope you have a rope to pull the Volkswagen, because we do want to make it. I've got to catch an airplane out the next day to meet a tight schedule in Iran and Israel. In fact, in 5 days, I have many meetings in Iran, Israel, and Turkey. And the airplanes aren't functioning properly either. I was listening last night to an incredible hour-and-a-half report on the Yom Kippur War. I'm not sure I want to go to Israel next week, but I was reading in Newsweek today Mr. Sadat's statements, and they're very encouraging, unless he's lying again, which he does do sometimes. Publicity, very important sin, you know, in our attitude toward publicity. You need to understand them. This great burden and desire to give all the glory to God. It's a never-ending battle. I can say that in a sermon, or I can preach a sermon on that. And I find the next day, subconsciously, I'm scratching out just a bit. Glory for George Verwer, just a little bit. It's a subconscious thought. Long after consciously you've got the victory, like Billy Jones, subconsciously you never get it. You'll never get it. 100% victory until you're with Jesus Christ. I've never met anybody with it. Not anybody honest. I've met deceived people. Publicity, great enemies. Killed many a revival, you know. Killed the Welsh revival. You ever read about the Welsh revival? Just reading about something about that too just 2 days ago. And how the devil just invaded that revival. Jesse Penn Lewis speaks about that. By the way, if you want to know a lot of who's behind Austin Sparks' writing, you want to know who's behind Watchman Nee's teaching, where do you think you got all that teaching? Out of China? Don't kid yourself. You got it from Jesse Penn Lewis. 75% of it rehashed Jesse Penn Lewis. Good, Chinese style, great. Austin Sparks thrown in. Big Jim Taylor gets thrown in. Others get thrown in. Of course, it's amazing. It's good to go back, however, some of the sources. Of course, who knows where Jesse Penn Lewis got it. But she had a lot of original sources. She was one of the founders of Keswick. Quite a story. I better not get into that. I think it's a sidetrack. But we need to give all the glory to God. Organizing prayer groups. Boy, we're really slipping on that. Really slipping. That's something you have to do when you go home. Though I know some people who have done it by post. Challenging a few people to get together, organize prayer groups, prayer cells. This is what we need to be doing in the work in India more as well. Organizing prayer cells. There's not enough emphasis on this. Read about that. It's amazing. All these things written in the manual. If it was a secular company, everybody would just obey it. They figure they either obey it or lose their job. Not in Christian work. We have many leaders don't read this book from one year to the next. If I gave our leaders worldwide an exam on this manual, I'd tell you, you'd die of depression. Now, there's some things, of course, it doesn't matter because they got them into their bloodstream. But many other things we don't. Many OM leaders don't have prayer groups, don't have prayer letters, don't see proper giving in their field. They wonder why. We had a business management expert once come into OM. His name was John Watt. Came out of the Phillips Corporation. He went around and looked at OM. Boy, he was pretty discouraged. Looked pretty hopeless. 1964. Then he read this manual. He came in to me and said 90% of all OM's problems are solved in this manual. He said, does anybody read it? Does anybody read it? Hundreds of hours of time, hundreds of mistakes taught us what we put into this manual. The revised manual will be better. But you've got to read it, you've got to study it, you've got to try it, see where you fail, come back, study it again, and then you can write your own chapters. I asked all leaders worldwide to send me their revisions. I asked that 1.5 years ago. Less than 5 leaders sent me any revisions. You wonder why OM is so slow in doing the job we've got. And don't tell me not to criticize his work. Because we need criticism. I don't hang our dirty, I don't know if I should say this in India, underwear out in front of the public. I don't believe in going airing all of our faults in front of the public, making gossip, creates confusion, loses recruits. So I do it sometimes. In a balanced way, I hope. But among us, we need to be able to objectively see our faults and believe God, and we can do better. And I pray to God that this new generation of leaders can do better than the last bunch. That includes me. That's unfortunate. And I want to tell you, I'll give my job over at any time. If 7 leaders, even 5, can agree on anybody who should take it, I'll go and retire. Join the Salvation Army and maybe get some discipline whipped into my bloodstream after 19 years of playing around. Hope that's not too much of an exaggeration. Leading a team in daily evangelistic distribution. I've rewritten all that because it's so geared to the 63 Crusades. Just pick out what you can when you read that. How to effectively evangelize with literature. There again, that's being rewritten. This is a grammatical mistake. It's always been allowed. Chapter 30, if you know Roman numerals. Cooking and feeding operation mobilization team. Now, we never really did want to cook the team. Though we've heard of people burning themselves. So that will be changed. Don't bother studying that for now. You don't have time. Encounters with police and civil authorities, leave that off for now too. It's a little verbose. But care of literacy. What a crime. Now we don't take better care of our literacy. And I hope you'll be able to give some main points. Areas where we easily fail in this matter of caring for literacy. Transportation and highway safety, such a basic issue. You know, one of our biggest problems, whenever we leave this ship and we get in a vehicle, the biggest problems in the practical level, you know where they are? Centered around a vehicle. Really. I've had more nervous tension driving vehicles than any other area. Except that I don't drive them so much anymore. But I've driven these trucks plenty. Boy, I tell you, I never want to be a truck driver. And that was 20 girls in the back of the truck, having to stop every 45 minutes. Back in those days, I didn't even know what they were stopping for. I was so immature. But, really, this is an important chapter. Don't presume you're a good driver. Good drivers make some of the worst accidents. Drive carefully. Be open to correction. At the end of a journey, ask your brother, how do you think I could improve my driving? No one ever asks me that when I travel with him. But I tell them. Get people in the Volkswagen driving 20 miles an hour in fourth gear, and they wonder why the engine's about to cough and jump out the back. A lot of simple things, but they cost money. And if it were your vehicle that you earned with your money, oh boy, you'd be polishing the vehicle and checking the batteries. We had one girl down in Spain didn't think Volkswagens had batteries. On the whole, however, girls take better care of vehicles than men. Really. Travel in general, the philosophy of OM travel, why we use old vehicles, two other points. Personal evangelism, approaches to use on the doors. All these things deserve review. You, of course, can add to it from your own experience. Leading outreach. We could be having many, many more of these weekend outreach. You can organize these. You don't need the international coordinator to come do it. Study this. Learn how it's done. It's an effective way to mobilize the church. A lot can be done in that area if we're willing to take the initiative. And then handling doctrinal differences, very important, and our ultimate aims. Make sure you know that last chapter. Mark it with an X. Study. It's very, very important. Because a lot of people say, what are the goals of OM? Get a leader. I don't know the goals of OM. I said, have you ever read the last chapter of Leader's Manual? Say, sure. I say, what is it? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. It's the goals of OM. It's what we are and what we are not. The practical goals have to be outlined by the local leaders. The basic goals are in that book. And I hope you'll get to know them. Let's pray. Dear God, take these things out of paper and ink, put them in our hearts. That we may be more effective leaders, whether it's leading our own family or leading a team of 500 people. We just thank you for the leaders you have raised up. We thank you for the victories they have had. We praise you for this group of like-minded men around the world. And we know they all need help and improvement, and so do we. So we commit this to you. Help us to be a real encouragement to our leaders when we're the assistants or just the followers. For we ask in Jesus' name, amen.